Hello, yes, hi, and welcome to the Dark Knight Conspiracies, episode 13, Election 2020, the day after. Now, I know this is a couple days after the election, but I had to take a couple days to soak in some information, gather my thoughts, calm my anger. But I watched election night, and in my bat cave, I had four monitors going where I was watching four different networks with the mainstream media. And I'm not going to say it's comical, but in a way it was. Because we saw some irregularities primarily with Fox, as they've done this before in the past. So at early on in the election process, and I'll show you a picture when polls started closing at 7 o'clock, then 8 o'clock. Here's a screenshot of Fox. Virginia called for Biden. Trump is 66.1 to 32.8. Only 1% of the vote is in. Who calls that early? I don't care what they're basing their information on. You could at least wait till a little more vote gets in. Now, like they did in 2018 at 9 o'clock, Brett Baer announced Democrats will maintain the House. Well, 9 o'clock our time is 6 o'clock West Coast time. These people still had 2 to 3 hours left of voting. How California alone has like 8 to 12 congressional seats. How the hell can you call that already? Again, this is voter suppression, people. They're hoping that people are standing in line looking at their phones showing, oh, well, this was called. I don't need to stand in line and vote anymore. I'll go home. And I'm sure that's what happens. Shortly after, around 10 o'clock, they called Arizona for Biden. The only network outside of AP that still has Arizona for Biden. None of the other networks have conceded this yet. At that time, there were still 1 million votes that still needed to be tabulated. Folks, this mainstream media is in bed with the Democrats. This was all planned. And I'll tell you what the plan was. Normally, I was watching this throughout the night. I didn't go to bed till 4:30 in the morning. Normally, with what I saw and the percentage of votes that still weren't tabulated yet, under normal circumstances, Trump should have been called the victor at midnight, 1 a.m. at the latest. Then what I noticed shortly after midnight, for 2 hours, there were no updates. I'm like, well, that's unusual. How can you not have updates in these states? Now, let me step back a minute. Newsmax at 8 o'clock, they called Florida, which turns out Trump did win Florida. But Newsmax was the only one that got it right. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, they didn't call Florida till like 2 in the morning. The objective, just like the polls, to show Biden was leading everything. Trump only had like a 5% chance of winning the presidency. Their job was to suppress the vote, not declare a president until they got to a point, which was somewhere between midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning, where the left could see what they needed in certain battleground states to make up the difference. And then we started to see reports. Michigan, Atlanta, stopped counting votes, sent their workers home. Well, Trump and his people got wind and were paying attention. And lo and behold, 2 o'clock in the morning, Trump addressed the nation and he told them, what the hell's going on here? North Carolina, 91% of the vote was in. He had a 150,000 point lead with 9% of the vote left. You can't make up 150,000 votes with 9% left. To this day, North Carolina still has not been called. Georgia, he was up 200,000 votes. Now we're seeing it's a very slim margin. Michigan, and this was one I was paying particular attention to. Trump and John James were leading by over 300,000 votes at 4:30 a.m. when I went to bed. I got back up at 9:30. All of a sudden they were down by 60,000 votes, and here's the key. Trump and John James for Senate, they were almost tied with the number of votes for them. And lo and behold, miraculously, 130,000 votes came in and got counted. Listen, 130,000 votes got tabulated and all went to Biden and Gary Peters. Not one single vote for Trump or John James. This is statistically impossible. So Trump was on top of this. We're starting to see video footage of people going in the TCF Center in downtown Detroit, which is Wayne County, people unloading cars with boxes of ballots at 4 in the morning. Now, why is 4 in the morning important? Well, Trump at 2 o'clock, when he was addressing the nation, specifically said, and you can look this up on YouTube, it's out there, prepare for the 4 a.m. dump. And we saw it because that's when everything changed. Now, where this goes, I don't know. We got lawsuits in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Atlanta, and now Nevada. I've researched the Constitution. It's a gray area. There's nothing specific that outlines voter fraud and what to do. I don't know how this plays out. I'm waiting for somebody to ask the question that if you prove that there was voter fraud, what's the next step? Nobody knows. Nobody's asking it on TV. I don't know. Do they just arrest people for voter fraud? And okay, that's fine and dandy, but the vote counts? I don't know how this plays out. Now you got people out there saying, well, at least we got the Senate. Well, we really don't have the Senate yet. Right now it's 48-46. You got two senators in Georgia because the vote's so close. We don't know what's going to happen with them. One, Loeffler, will have to go in a runoff because neither one got 50% because Doug Collins was running. He bowed out. So there'll be a runoff in January. So we're not going to know the status of the Senate till sometime in January. Now, people are saying, well, if Biden is elected and gets the presidency, it don't matter because, we got the Senate to block them. People, I've told you this before. Think of this as a bird. They have a left wing and they have a right wing. They're all part of the same bird. To sit there and think Mitch McConnell with his Chinese wife, Lindsey Graham, the butt boy for John McCain, rest in peace. These people in the Senate, these Republicans, I don't trust them. I can see them going along with this once Biden gets power, once the Democrats get power, because let's face it, they're all blackmailed. The only reason stuff was getting done is Trump was in power. He was forcing them to do his bidding with getting judges and everything else confirmed, especially the Supreme Court, which I think is now huge. But Trump also has dirt on these people. Once Trump is gone, there's nobody pressuring them anymore but the Democrats. So do not put your faith in these Republican senators. Most of them are closet never Trumpers. And you're going to start to see their true colors if Biden is announced the president. Now, that's going to be key from the media side because if Fox comes out with the way this is right now and declares Biden the president, these lawsuits and everything else is going to be a can of worms moving forward. I don't know how much progress will happen after that point. So far, they haven't announced anything or declared another state yet. We'll find out probably tomorrow. Now, some things I've seen on the internet indicate that Trump will be declared the president tomorrow. I'm not sure about that. I could be wrong. I have been in the past. But Trump, if he wins North Carolina, if he wins Georgia, if he wins Arizona, Nevada, and Pennsylvania's looking real good right now. Whatever's going on in Michigan and Wisconsin won't matter. Trump will be the president. And we already know there's going to be a recount in Wisconsin because by their laws, it's within 1% and it triggers an automatic recount. Not the same case in some of these other states. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. I believe Trump's got this. I believe he had his people in place going back to 2018 when he focused on getting the Senate because he needed the Senate to get a lot of his stuff done with judges, confirming judges and such. But we all know in 2018 the House picked up a lot of seats. Knowing what we know now, my guess is a lot of those elections were probably fraudulent. But Trump had his people on the ground back then. They know the playbook. They saw how they did it. So we'll wait and see how this plays out. Now, what's interesting, we're hearing a lot of stories about, or I'm hearing a lot of stories with some individuals close to me that are giving me information that our ballots were protected with a secret watermark. Now, this is important because if fraudulent ballots were printed up and used and stored in warehouses like we've seen in the past, we've seen the videos from uh, Matt Gaetz back in Florida in 2018, where he videotaped people taking boxes of ballots out of a storage unit. If these fraudulent ballots were pre-filled out and waiting, and I'm going to go back to when they stopped counting at 1 a.m. in the morning because they had the vote tallies, they saw how many votes they needed to produce in order to steal those states. If these ballots don't have that watermark, this is going to be gold in a court of law. But the question is that the case? Right now, I have no validation of that. It's a conspiracy, which is what this show's about. Now, what leads credence to this? Not many people remember this story, but I did. And I'll leave these links in my description as I always do. This was back in July of 2020. Does anybody remember the Chinese consulate in Houston ordered to close down? Now, the cover story was they were spying. This was a spying hub, and they were using this consulate to spy, and the State Department shut them down. And lo and behold, they started to burn documents within the building, and it resulted in a fire where the fire department had to respond. And you can read this article, but that was the cover story, that it was espionage. I have seen different theories as to what was really going on there. The Chinese were pre-printing 2020 election ballots. This would explain the watermark theory, that these Chinese were pre-printing these things. The Democrats spent 2 years filling them out. Not sure how they could do that or print these ballots with specifically not knowing who would be on them, because we do have primaries. But if this thing's all rigged, I guess they would have already had those answers back then. So that's just my theory on this. That this is a huge story that's not being reported. That this is what China could have been doing to interfere with our elections. So I'll tie this into something Joe Biden said recently on October 31st on the campaign trail. Now, I want you to listen to what he says. Folks, we got a lot of work to do. I don't need you to get me elected. I need you once I'm elected. I don't need you to get me elected. I need you once I'm elected. He just projected they were planning to steal the election. You can't be more clearer than that. Again, projection. The Democrats always project what they're going to do and what the other side does. So he basically just told the American public, I don't need you. We're going to steal this. This is BS. I'm telling you. People need, I know a lot of people are angry. A lot of people are confused and upset, specifically at Trump. And one of the reasons, if you go to the Gateway Pundit, this thing is loaded with video and everything that's been going on in Michigan with the people working at these ballot places talking about hostile environments and how they had instigators and intimidators from the Democrat side to where the Republicans at some point got locked out in Michigan. This cannot go on and go unchallenged. We have John James. He's not conceding. Good for you. Do not concede this until this plays out in the courts. Project, Project Veritas released a video interviewing a United States Postal Service person in Michigan talking about how his supervisor directed him to put ballots aside that came in late so they could pre postmark them prior to the election. Now we got them in Nevada. This is a good one. A legal win in Pennsylvania. Courts decided that any votes collected after the polls closed in Pennsylvania, they must set them aside until the court can rule further. Excellent. And you can just see Trump won so big in Wisconsin. You got Wisconsin and Minnesota all of a sudden had 90% voter turnout. You break down the numbers, they actually had more votes cast than they did registered voters. You can find this stuff out for yourself. Just go in there and look at their Secretary of State's websites, and you could do the math. The same thing with Michigan. This is what you're going to find out. Oh, look, the DOJ is finally getting involved. Where the hell have they been during all this? And you know, this has been, here we go, GOP observers barred from entering Philadelphia. It's just nonstop on this site. This is a good site, folks. But this is what upsets me because you listen to some of these people speaking out. My first response to all these people, and I don't know if this is planned. If you're seeing corruption and you're being told to get out, or you can't do this and you can't do that, everybody's got a cell phone. Why the hell didn't anybody call the FBI to get in there and stop this process? Now, one theory would be, well, you can't arrest them if you stop them before committing the crime. So was the plan, you let them commit the crime, then arrest them? That's fine and dandy. But you know what? I still don't know what happens after all these votes are counted. You know, does the state do, if they prove fraud, does the state do a recount? I can't find any of these answers. So everything is still up in the air. I I don't know. All I can say is let's let the process play out. Keep our faith in God. Stay strong. Stay safe. Stay vigilant. Oh, and just one little caveat. You know, on Monday, we saw all around the United States how COVID's spiking and they're talking shutdowns all over the place. Well, here it is Thursday. You know what? I haven't seen anybody talking about a spike in COVID. We had millions of people voting in person. Where's the spikes? You know, we all had to wear our masks and social distance in the voting. What what happened to the spikes? Trump said this numerous times. Come November 4th, the COVID goes away. You're not going to hear any more about it. So I don't know. I'm waiting to see if we hear any more. So thank you all. Try to stay calm, stay patient, let this play out. But at some point, we might have to get involved in a peaceful way. Thank you, everybody. Same bat time, same bat channel. Good night.